I'm honored to be here today in an audience of professionals dedicated to cancer survivors. Truth be told, I don't have a degree in healthcare, so this is the closest I'll ever come to being at a conference in the field of medicine. I want to cover two topics today, and Sharon and Kate said I had just 10 minutes, and that's all I need. The first is where the Connecticut Challenge been and where we're going, and then I just want to share a couple stories with you. That's it. It's an exciting time in the field of cancer survivorship as we continue to grow, adapt, and remain responsive to the expanding needs of cancer survivors. But it's also a time of great uncertainty. We are confronting a period of enormous challenges, many of which could impact the important programs that we all work in. Budgets are being cut, and in some cases, programs canceled. The result of all this could mean less support for the very people who need it. So the key to our success during this uncertain era will be to remain laser focused on our mission to empower cancer survivors. Winston Churchill once said, "A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity. An optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty." So we must surge forward during these uncertain times. We'll seek out new partners, work together to share best practices with our existing hospitals, create new revenue streams to raise more money, and look for innovative ways to bring resources and care to those we serve. Last year, we announced our 5-year strategic plan and are excited to report strong progress was made. Our vision is a belief that real change begins with informed survivors. We envision a world in which all survivors can be armed with the resources and knowledge to take control of their life and live it to their full potential. Central to this vision is the design and execution of innovative programs, which are the basis for our strategic objectives. So there's just 4. First, we want to develop, as Sharon said, a network of informed partners by collaborating with county-based hospitals and cancer support organizations. Number 2, create a center for survivorship to lead the way in developing model programs and in fact use evidence-based research there to support our work. Number 3, expand public awareness on survivorship through programs, events, and advocacy. And number 4, build on community engagement and educational strengths to support a greater number of survivors. So where have we been and where we're going now? What are our achievements? In 2011, we've made a real impact. We're proud to announce that the Connecticut Challenge has impacted the lives of over 15,000 survivors. We've set an ambitious goal of reaching 40,000 by 2014, and we think that milestone's attainable earlier. Since 2005, we've raised $6 million as a grassroots organization and accumulated over 30,000 donors and friends. We've built strong partnerships with companies and small businesses who care about corporate social responsibility, developed relationships with private donors and family foundations, and created a unique bond with 1,200 bike riders who last year in July raised $1.5 million on a single day. This is the magic of the Connecticut Challenge. The connections we make between those who have resources and are committed to building a better world and those who are on the ground equally dedicated to realizing the vision, all of you in the audience today. So I want to share a couple stories with you. Someone once said that when your life comes to an end, the only real thing we have is to hold on to is memories. And our memories revolve around real life stories. The first story is about defining moments in life. Can anyone in the audience remember their defining moment in life? It might be the first kiss, the birth of a son or a daughter, graduating from college. Mine came at 12 years old. I had just come off a year playing Pop Warner football, Little League baseball, and now I was entrenched in Pee Wee hockey. I lived for sports and I couldn't get enough of it. Life was really, really good. And then my world was shattered upside down. On a cold, windy morning, in December 1974, I was playing hockey for the Bridgeport Pee Wees. And as I skated down the ice, A defenseman came from behind me and tripped me, and I went right into the boards, knee first. Slammed in there. I got up after the ice, and I went home, and the next day I was in the doctor's office. The following day, after an x-ray, they discovered a hairline fracture in my knee, and behind this crack was a tumor. At the hospital, my parents came to my bedside and said they were going to take away my leg. 1 week later, on Christmas Eve, my right leg was amputated, and I now faced 18 months of chemotherapy. Doctors told me my days of an athlete were over, and getting through chemo would be my biggest victory. So now I had two challenges. I had cancer to face, and I also had to face being physically handicapped for the rest of my life. But I never gave up, and I believed my dream would come true. So what was my dream? My dream was, it was pretty simple. I wanted to become an athlete again. I wanted to play a varsity sport in high school, and I wanted to play a varsity sport in college, and then I wanted to run across America. Well, luckily, through hard work and over the period of years, and I won't bore you with all the details, I actually went on to play lacrosse in high school and skied on my high school ski team. I went on to play lacrosse at Boston College. And then in 1985, I ran across America and covered 3,300 miles, jumping into the Pacific Ocean when I finished. But the real accomplishment, as I look back for me, is something I never imagined would be possible. Since age 12, I've had the incredible honor to have met and spoken to over 1,000 cancer survivors, each with their own story to tell. Over the last 30 years, I've assembled a library, which has been a roadmap for me to follow my life. These stories were filled with triumph and hope, inspiration and energy, happy endings and bad endings. There are enough life lessons in these stories to provide a guidebook for anyone. Self-help books are good for some people, but these book of journeys, of survivor journeys, are even better. There are 12 million more survivor stories out there today, and I know each one of you in this room has your own. Getting cancer for me was the greatest thing that ever happened to me in my life. It's the best thing that ever happened. So the next story is a series of stories about courage and heart, and begins with a girl named Susan Lloyd, who died of cancer at age 19 in 1980. She had the same cancer and diagnosis as myself. Susan's mom, Ann, started a nonprofit called the Susan Fund, and she's been running it for 30 years. This past year, we decided to give a grant to the Susan Fund, which provides scholarships to college for cancer survivors. I had the honor and privilege to meet over 32 kids, I call them, because they really were, for one-on-one interviews and follow-up meetings. Each survivor had their own story to tell. Some were in treatment, and the rest were in remission. And yes, those that were 2, 3, 5 years out all had stories of lingering effects of cancer treatment. Whether that be chronic fatigue, depression, cognitive impairment, neuropathy, the list was long and long. Their paths were wide-ranging in terms of what they wanted to be when they grew up. One was a scientist, another one was a teacher, a nurse oncologist, an artist, a sociologist, and some were basically, I just don't know. One story that stood out was about a girl named Kathy. In her own words, I'll read what she said. She said, "I was diagnosed with a malignant germ cell brain tumor in 2007 and suffered tremendously from the after effects of it all. I'm now on numerous costly medications for life, which have also had negative effects on my overall health. I have more than doubled my weight since my original diagnosis." Well, as we started to talk to her, she said, yeah, I went off to school this past year in Boston. And we asked her how her first year was, and she basically said, my roommate was making fun of me because I was fat. And she said she was telling all her friends. So she moved out on her own into a single room. Because of her treatment, her thyroid glands have been altered, and she can't lose weight. She tries hard and hard and hard. But the one thing that impressed me most about Kathy wasn't that she wasn't bitter or mad at all. In fact, she was kind of energetic about everything and just sort of a matter of fact. She's an inspiring artist, and her work is recognized locally amongst all her local peers. She's gone back to her second year in college, and she's doing really well. After meeting with these 32 students, reading their stories, seeing their family background, looking at their hardships, and hearing firsthand their health challenges as a survivor, I became awestruck by these young women and men as they told their stories one word at a time, one sentence at a time. I like to refer to them as sort of storytellers with a soul. Everyone had an amazing challenge of overcoming cancer. Another recipient had Hodgkin's lymphoma and is in remission. She lives in an apartment in college. Her mom is a cashier at a supermarket. Her dad's a truck driver who's now unemployed. So she's basically on her own. She can barely make ends meet with her utility, electrical, and car payments. She's on Medicaid but has to pay $4,000 a year out of pocket just to cover some insurance that's not covered. And she only makes $9,000 a year. She hadn't had a mammogram in a year because she couldn't afford it. So we were able to get one of our hospital partners, St. Vincent's Medical Center, to find a private donor to help pay for her exam, and we're happy to report she has a clean bill of health. Her teachers have given her rave reviews as she works for the department of, the head of psychology part-time to help pay for college. And they couldn't say enough about her energy and her positive spirit. And one more thing, she's maintained a 4.0 GPA through her entire career at school. So I've learned that all these students had a couple things in common. They had an incredible amount of courage, an incredibly big heart. You see, the original definition of courage when it first came into the English language, it's from the Latin word cur, which means, Latin word cur meaning heart. And the original definition was to tell the story of who you are with your whole heart. The Susan Fund has put over 500 kids through college. And with these, you have 500 incredible stories about little young men and women. Mrs. Lloyd has all these stories, and this is what keeps the Susan Fund alive today. So the stories we tell about our own life are important, and the stories we share with each other matter even more. And in the end, I believe the manner in which we explore each other's stories is of huge significance. When I meet with donors today, and I ask them for money, they ask me, what is survivorship? And many people just don't get it and they don't understand. I tell them our mission through real-life stories. Once I tell the story, the message and the reason why we exist becomes crystal clear. There are 12 million survivor stories out there, and each one is about courage and heart. We need all of you in the audience today to keep telling the stories. In closing, I'd like to thank each one of you for attending and bringing your expertise to the summit. You as organizational leaders have the vision, the knowledge, and the imagination to help us pave the way for a better world for cancer survivors. You're truly our greatest asset for the future, and the Connecticut Challenge couldn't be where it is today without you. In closing, Margaret Mead once said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, is the only thing that ever has." Thank you and enjoy your day.